Greetings, and thank you for tuning in to the Active Transportation Resource Center training series. The purpose of our flash trainings is to provide quick tutorials on key topics and tools for the Active Transportation Program applicants and potential awardees. This training is on guidance on the 22R, the Non-Infrastructure Work Plan. The Active Transportation Resource Center, or ATRC, mission is to assist California communities, tribal areas, and schools with resources, technical assistance, and training to help implement active transportation projects. And here are the learning objectives for this training. All ATP applicants with a non-infrastructure component must submit an Exhibit 22R, Non-Infrastructure Work Plan, which describes the proposed program. This flash training will provide a review of NI in the ATP Cycle 4, an overview and demonstration of the Exhibit 22R form, and tips on how to complete the 22R. As a review of the non-infrastructure projects in the ATP Cycle 4, non-infrastructure is encouragement, education, and enforcement activities that further the goals of the ATP. Projects can be NI only or infrastructure and non-infrastructure combined. Non-infrastructure projects can be startup programs or new and/or expanded components of existing programs. The CTC intends to focus funding on startup projects. A project is considered a startup when no program currently exists. A project with new and/or expanded components to an existing program must demonstrate how the original program is continuing without ATP funding. All non-infrastructure projects must demonstrate how the program is sustainable and will be continued after ATP funding is exhausted. ATP cannot fund existing or ongoing program operations, and non-infrastructure is not limited to those benefiting school students. Non-infrastructure guidance in the 22R form. Please review the newest version of the Non-Infrastructure Guidance. It gives examples and descriptions of eligible non-infrastructure costs and expenditures in the ATP. The NI guidance has been reformatted to directly correlate to the 22R form. The new version includes some updates from Cycle 3. Also, the 22R form has been slightly revised from Cycle 3, so ensure you're using the newest form. Here's the Caltrans ATP website for Cycle 4, and here's where you can find the non-infrastructure forms. The Caltrans ATP Non-Infrastructure Guidance is located at the top of the screen, and the Attachment G, the Non-Infrastructure Work Plan, is located in the attachment section toward the bottom. The Exhibit 22R is in an Excel form. It is divided into the following sections. There is an instruction tab at the beginning, so please read, print, and follow the directions as you go. Then there is the Exhibit 22R tab, which is essentially the cover sheet. Then it is divided into various tasks, task A, B, C, etc., which indicates different activities, staff costs, and indirect costs. Following each of those tasks is a tab for other costs, and this indicates travel, equipment, supplies and materials, incentives, and other direct costs. So here's the Excel form for the Exhibit 22R. Here's the Instruction tab. Please follow the directions as you fill out the form. I'd recommend printing them out and using them as you go. The next tab is the Exhibit 22R cover sheet. The applicant needs to fill out the top portion, numbers 1 through 5. The date is the date you are filling out the form today. Then type in the implementing agency's name. And you won't need the project number yet, so you can leave that part blank. Then add the project location and the project summary. Please note that the project summary should be consistent with the summary of project scope in the application. The task summary at the bottom half of the page will auto-populate based on information that you will put in the following sheets. Note that for quick navigation, you can click on the blue hyperlinked tasks, which will direct you to that particular task. Now moving on to the tasks. In each non-infrastructure project, you will need to divide the work into tasks. Here we are on Task A. Please insert the task name and task summary at the top of the page. Then you will need to list all the activities that fall within that task. Please ensure that the activities are specific and not too vague. Applicants must include the numbers of each activity, such as host 3 to 5 bike rodeos at each of the 5 elementary schools, or conduct a pedestrian and bicycle safety education event in each of the 5 neighborhoods in the program area. As part of each activity, you will need to include a start date and an end date, as well as a deliverable. Deliverables must be tangible items, such as flyers and photos of bike rodeos, and not something like execute a bike rodeo. Another example would be meeting notes and meeting sign-in sheets, as opposed to conducting a meeting. So here is an example of a task with the task name, the summary, and task activities filled out. As you can see, each of these has specific numbers of various activities as well as a tangible deliverable. So moving on, this next section is staff costs. It is separated by agency staff time and consultant staff time. For the agency staff time, list the staff title or position that will work on this task. For the consultant staff time, you do not need to include the position title, but do include an identifier to distinguish the work that the consultant will perform. Please refer to the Non-Infrastructure Guidance Staff Cost section for more information on eligibility. Once you identify a staff person, such as this first party one here, the program manager, you will then need to use the drop-down menu to select if it is an ATP or an in-kind funded part of the project. In-kind refers to local funds, donations, or any other funding source that will not be reimbursed by the ATP. Depending on what you select, the total will populate in the correct column. So for example, the program manager will be funded with ATP. Say they have 100 staff hours at a rate of $88 per hour. It'll auto-populate into the total ATP funding column. Then, say the city planner will be in-kind. So you will select in-kind from the drop-down menu and say they will donate 50 hours of in-kind work at $55 per hour. So now the total populates in the in-kind total column. Now moving on to staff time for consultants. As an example here is a consultant for a media campaign. You will select the drop-down menu as to if it's ATP or in-kind. In this case, it's ATP. And you can follow the same steps of hours and rate per hour as you did above, or you can enter a total amount. For example, for this media consultant, we will put 1 in the staff hours, and then we will acquire the consultant through an RFP process that will spend $25,000. The next part of this form is the indirect costs. The applicant only needs to fill this out if they are looking to get reimbursed for indirect costs. Please note that the applicant does need to get an approved Indirect Cost Allocation Plan, or ICAP, from Caltrans Audits and Investigations. Please refer to the Non-Infrastructure Guidance Indirect Cost section for the process on this. Once you have an approved ICAP, the applicant would then check the box in 8A, insert their approved rate in 8B, and then calculate the costs in 8C. This next section for number 9 is task notes. And in this space, you can add any notes or clarifications you would like to make. There is a note in this example that this is a 2-year program and half of the events will be held in one school year and half of the events will be held the next school year. And then there's also a note that for the consultant services, an RFP process will be developed. At the bottom is the section for other costs. And for this section, you will need to refer to the next tab. You can either select the button on the screen or select the tab at the bottom. On this sheet is where you will include all the itemized costs, other than staff time and indirect costs. This includes travel, equipment, supplies and materials, incentives, and other. Please see the Non-Infrastructure Guidance, Other Costs section for the eligibility and cost limitations for various items. These sheets work similar to the other sheets in terms of selecting ATP or in-kind funded items. So, for example, in the travel box, say we need to travel to a school site for events. We will type in travel to school site in the type of travel. Then we will select either ATP or in-kind. Say we need to travel 100 miles, and you'll put miles in the units, at a cost of 54 cents per mile. And then this will auto-populate the total. Moving down to equipment costs, say we need to purchase some bikes for bike rodeos. Again, we will select whether this is in-kind or ATP. And say we need 10 bikes at a cost of $250 per bike. And again, this auto-populates here. You'll need to repeat this process of the task and the task other costs for each of the tasks within your program. And note that when you go back to this Exhibit 22R cover page, your costs will be populated in these columns for the total cost at the bottom of the screen. There are various ways to organize your non-infrastructure program into tasks. Here are some examples. You can organize your program into the 5 E's or the subset of 5 E's that your program relates to. The 5 E's are education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and evaluation. You can also organize your tasks by school or community area, or you may want to organize them chronologically by activity type. Here are some helpful tips to remember when filling out your Form 22R. Make sure to differentiate between what is ATP and what is in-kind. This is important so that the total project cost populates in the right columns. Make sure that the totals on the 22R match the funding tables and the project programming request in the application. Be specific and include the number of activities within each task. Include the number or range. This is important because, if funded, this is what you will report on in progress reports and final reports to ensure the program will meet what was originally scoped. And then also, please follow the Non-Infrastructure Guidance for eligible costs and expenditures. Please note that the 22R is worth 10 points in the non-infrastructure application. It will get attached to the application as Attachment G. Please ensure that the 22R meets each of the following: that it is complete, it's clear, organized, and detailed, that it is consistent with the responses throughout the application, and that it is in compliance with the ATP goals and the Non-Infrastructure Guidance. For questions or non-infrastructure project assistance, the ATRC has a team of non-infrastructure specialists that can help provide advice, direct you to best practices, and link you to helpful resources. If you need project assistance, please contact the email on the screen. Please also view the ATRC website for guides, resources, tools, and recorded webinars on various non-infrastructure topics, which can help inform you of how to shape your non-infrastructure program. And the website for that is on the screen. Thank you for watching this flash training.